On this Monday night, police locate the getaway car used in the armed kidnapping of a Chinese international student.
Why him? Why not the friend that he was with? Why not anybody else? But it does appear that it was targeted, and we want to know why.
48 hours in, and still no sign of the 22-year-old man grabbed from his garage. Plus,
the wounds are always open, to be honest. They don't go away.
7 years in, the inquest into a stage collapse that killed a 33-year-old drum technician begins. And Toronto's black community is applauding a city-run event tonight aimed at recognizing and advocating for people of African descent. Good evening, I'm Mike Wise. Police say they have recovered the vehicle involved in the violent kidnapping of a Chinese international student in Markham over the weekend, but the 22-year-old is still missing. Adrian Chung has the latest on the investigation.
This black Dodge Caravan was found in Toronto more than 24 hours after it was used in Wan Jianlu's kidnapping. Police say tips from the public over the past 48 hours helped them find it.
The car is going to be poured through by our forensic identification unit, again, who are some of the finest in this country. So they're going to be looking for any sort of evidence that might be able to depict or determine who was in that vehicle and lead us to where Mr. Liu might be.
Police released still images from the surveillance footage that caught the whole abduction. 22-year-old Liu, also known as Peter, is a Chinese national and student at Seneca College. He arrived at his apartment's underground garage on Saturday evening with a female friend. 3 suspects jumped out of a waiting van. They tasered Liu, dragged him into the van, then drove off. Neither the suspects nor Liu have been heard from since.
Let me be very clear to the suspects, if they are watching this, now is the time to seek legal counsel and turn yourself in. Now is the time to let Mr. Liu go, put him in a safe location, we're going to get him, and he'll be safe from there.
Liu's family is set to arrive in Canada from China, and police have not yet released what the possible motive could be. They say that they have not received any kind of communication from Liu or from the possible captors, and the family has not received any kind of ransom note. And police are continuing to ask for the public's help in solving this case. Adrian Chung, CBC News, Markham.
A large fire at a house in Mississauga tonight prompted the evacuation of several neighboring homes.
We had actually a gas-fed fire, so the natural gas meter on the back was burnt through, and we had natural gas feeding the fire. So that would pose a very strong challenge to us and the crews here to try to contain the fire.
The fire broke out around 6 o'clock in the area of Rathburn Road East and Tapestry Trail. No injuries were reported, and police say everyone inside the home at the time was able to get out. About half a dozen neighboring homes were evacuated as a precaution, but the fire is now out. And police are asking residents in Rosedale to be on alert after what they are calling 2 disturbing incidents where teenagers were approached by a stranger. Investigators say in separate incidents earlier this month near Branksome Hall, 2 teenage girls were approached by a man in a car. Police releasing this image of the suspect's vehicle, a silver Nissan Altima. In the first incident, a 14-year-old was approached near Elm and Sherburne. The man followed the girl in his car, then asked her to get in the vehicle. When she refused, he tried to grab her, but she got away. Just days later in the same area, a 13-year-old was followed by a man in a car who made sexual comments to her. The suspect is described as being in his 20s or early 30s. A deadly stage collapse that happened 7 years ago is back in the spotlight today. Radiohead's drum technician died just before a concert was set to begin at Downsview Park. A coroner's inquest is now underway. As Makta Gebrselassie tells us, Scott Johnson's family and friends are hoping for answers.
It's been nearly 7 years since the death of Scott Johnson, and for his father, Kenneth,
The wounds are always open, to be honest. They don't go away. So
he came from England and shared his pain on the first day of the inquest, looking into the circumstances of his son's death. Johnson, a drum technician for Radiohead, was on stage at Downsview Park on June 16, 2012, when the roof of the structure collapsed on him.
I think everybody would admit that mistakes have been made.
Today, the chief counsel for the coroner said this inquest will show there were deficiencies in how the stage was built. In all, 25 witnesses will testify. Radiohead drummer Philip Selway was among them today.
We feel a responsibility to Scott. We feel a responsibility to Mr. and Mrs. Johnson to our crew, and to our audience as well, to actually keep pursuing this.
Previously, the Ontario Ministry of Labour laid charges, but it took too long to go through the courts, and they were stayed. Meanwhile, the inquest's goal is not to lay blame, but to come up with recommendations to prevent this from happening again.
I've worked in this industry for decades, and there's lots of other people who've worked in this industry, and it could have happened to any of us.
Justin Anthonys is with the International Alliance of Theatrical Stage Employees. He says things have started to change in the last few years.
There have been changes. I think there's been a lot more emphasis on safety. I think, you're seeing even events now based on how there's conferences on how there can be better safety at these types of events, anything from crowd control to rescue plans and everything in between.
He is watching this inquest closely to see if even more improvements can come out of it. This inquest could take a few weeks, and those involved are hopeful that the recommendations that come out of it could save other lives. Magda Gebre-Selassie, CBC News, Toronto.
Colette Kennedy's here with the first look at the forecast. So Tuesday's forecast, kind of like Monday's forecast.
Yeah, a little bit like that. And, Wednesdays is going to be a little bit like that, too. It's what happens when we get into a weather pattern like this. We're seeing a really dominant ridge of high pressure pushing through. Not a bad thing, because it means we don't see the active weather, but it can be quiet for a few days when it comes to the weather, and we're kind of surrounded. So high pressure in place over the Great Lakes. You can see there's a system off to the southeast of us, back towards the west, a bit of cloud cover to the northeast, and in between, we get to enjoy the sunshine during the day, but it does mean that through the overnight hours, without any cloud cover, any heat that we do get during the day, we tend to lose it. Now, as we go Tuesday into Wednesday, just a little bit of cloud cover as the winds kind of change direction. We lose that high pressure eventually, but that's really not till about Thursday, and probably the beginning of the day will be okay, and then showers will push through later in the day, Thursday afternoon. So a couple of nice days ahead. Overnight tonight, though, does fall to -6, and it will feel closer to -12. And with our sunshine tomorrow, we should get just a little bit warmer than today, 5 degrees. After that, the temperatures are going to be climbing, Mike, and I'll show you those numbers when I come back.
All right. Thanks a lot, Colette.
No problem.
We are just 1 week away from the opening of the first official bricks and mortar pot shops in Ontario. Back in January, the plan was to have 25 privately run stores up and running by the start of April. Well, as of now, there are just 10 locations that may be in a position to open next week. That's all pending a final inspection of these locations. As for when the rest will open, well, that is still in question tonight.
We will have stores open on April 1st, and I know that the AGCO is continuing to work to make sure that the 25 that have been approved get their stores open in a timely manner.
Vic, it sounds like
Now, those other 15 locations are either still waiting on local store authorizations or in some cases retail licenses. Now, even when they do open, some retail experts wonder if those legal stores will struggle to draw customers away from illegal cannabis suppliers. As Ali Chiasson tells us, it all comes down to a matter of price and convenience.
Tokyo Smoke is a brand we started in Toronto. This is where we were born and raised, and the fact that, we literally had our first store in an alley. And now that a lottery winner has chosen to use our brand and to use it in such an amazing, iconic space, it still gives me shivers.
A dream come true for the people behind Tokyo Smoke, the cafe turned nationwide cannabis franchise.
We've been preparing for potential retail in Ontario for a long time.
After public consultations wrap April 2nd, their flagship store in the old HMV space at Yonge and Dundas Square is slated to open soon after. Brampton's only pot shop, Ganjika House, is hustling to open as soon as next week.
There are people who are actually passing by just to make sure it's real. This would be the entrance here after you, present your valid ID and you're over 19. You can enter the store here. There are going to be glass displays here that are going to be lit and, showcasing the accessories.
As we've seen across the country, from the Maritimes to the prairies to BC, these grand openings are like Bud Boxing Day.
We are getting ready to meet the demand. We are ready to meet the demand.
But is the demand going to be there once the excitement wears off? And what if you realize your dealer is cheaper?
Cannabis consumers are like any other consumer. like people will drive extra distance to get cheap gas, cannabis consumers will also shop around. And if it means that they can get a better deal right now on the black market from their existing supplier in a convenient way, it's still going to be tough for the government to compete against that.
You have to provide an option that is preferable to what they're doing already. So I think the pressure on price in terms of how we can combat the black market or illicit market is a substantial thing that we have to worry about as a brand and as an industry.
As for these legal operators, we are going to see them promote a lot their customer service and their safety as the edge on their competition, the black market, hoping that people will choose to go from the back alley into their storefront. Ali Chiasson, CBC News, Toronto.
The City of Toronto taking part in a United Nations-sponsored initiative tonight, a decade set up to recognize people of African descent. As our Taylor Simmons tells us, some are wondering why it took so long to happen.
Music, dance, and special ceremonies brought together dozens this evening, all to honor the United Nations International Decade for People of African Descent. Some tonight say it's taken too long to recognize this.
Got past the municipal government for some reason or another. The good news is that because we're here, when we realized that it had not been acknowledged before.
The UN announced the initiative back in 2015, asking countries and cities to recognize the contributions of the Black community and to strengthen their rights.
Stuff like this should have happened a long time ago.
We haven't been seeing a lot done in and around the city to commemorate this.
So what changed?
That the decade was proclaimed a few years ago. We hadn't yet embarked on this journey that we're early on in now with respect to fighting anti-Black racism.
The city created a group to implement a confronting anti-Black racism plan. It was that group that flagged the city had never acknowledged the UN's decade.
I would say that the city has been embracing of the plan and embracing of the action.
Now the city is making strides, so much so the UN wants to highlight their initiatives with other cities.
One of the big things for us really is to see city division heads contact us to say, you know what, we have this policy that we're about to implement. Can you take a look at it and make sure that there is ABR analysis?
Still, many tonight say the recognition is a step, but there's still much more to do.
Too often we have been saying, oh yes, things are happening and things are moving, and at the same time, once it starts, it just ends without any real change.
Another part of tonight's event, the Toronto sign is lit up in Pan-African colors, showing the city's commitment to keep doing events like this and more. Taylor Simmons, CBC News, Toronto.
Still to come, preyed on in their own homes. A family is speaking out after it bought thousands of dollars of HVAC equipment it doesn't need. After the break, we'll tell you why they're blaming one of Canada's biggest financial institutions for allowing it to happen. Welcome back. A Toronto man is accusing a major financial lender of allowing companies to prey on elderly people in their own homes. Financial lender Home Trust stopped buying HVAC rental contracts from a company back in 2016 after it was charged with unfair practices. But CBC Toronto has learned Home Trust has continued to buy similar contracts from other companies allegedly operating in the same way. Chris Glover has this CBC Toronto exclusive.
In his dad's Toronto basement, Howard Regan is disgusted at the sight of this equipment.
This UV light here that was hooked up, but isn't even plugged in. And I think that's $7,000 as well.
In 2017, he says a door salesman claiming to be with the gas company signed his 83-year-old dad up to rent an air filter. It set off a chain reaction of sales.
He had a newish furnace, newish air conditioner, didn't have any concerns about air filtration, and that contract was over 10 years for $14,400 for what appears to be a few $100s worth of equipment.
Since March 2018, door-to-door sales like these are against the law in Ontario, but in 2017, it was allowed.
Altogether, it seems to be about $5,000 to $7,000 worth of equipment, and he's paying $65,000 for it. And I don't think he wanted any of it. I don't think he understood what he was being asked or what he was signing.
In 2016, an HVAC retailer faced multiple charges for alleged unfair practices that were later dropped after a settlement was reached. Still, that September, one of Canada's largest financial lenders, Home Trust, committed to no longer buy rental agreements from the company. Regan's dad's contracts are with different HVAC companies, but are virtually the exact same. And in 2017, Home Trust bought 3 of them worth roughly $25,000. Home Trust then put liens on the equipment, and the home can't be sold until the liens are paid off.
It's so wrong. These people are clearly predatory. They're going after the elderly, people that don't quite understand what's going on. And without the lenders backing this up, it wouldn't happen.
Great, thanks.
This paralegal represents clients who have Home Trust liens. He alleges HVAC companies trick people into renting products they don't need, with rental agreements costing significantly more than the products are worth.
They claim that it's all above board because it's on this fine print on the back of the document that the people sign, but the people are being deceived. And Home Trust needs to, they need to be held accountable.
Home Trust admits it took over these rental agreements even after halting the practice with the company that was charged in 2016. But in a new statement, the financial lender said it discontinued the practice altogether in September 2018. It wrote, "Our core lending business is providing mortgages, and we determined that this much smaller line of business was not a fit with that focus." While Home Trust stopped accepting these sorts of contracts in September 2018, for Howard Regan, whose dad got them prior, he says he's stuck with them. That's why he's prepping his dad's home for sale and paying off the liens.
It's terrible. It makes me sad for him that he had to go through this. He's worked hard his whole life, and it's wrong that someone should be preyed on like this in their own home.
While this family is financially prepared to handle this emotionally, he says it's taken quite a toll. Chris Glover, CBC News, Toronto.
At the end of the day, what stirs us most is the opportunity to supercharge the university's ability to recruit and inspire the best talent in the world.
U of T is getting a $100 million boost, the largest donation in its history. Gerald Schwartz and Heather Reisman making the donation to help build the Schwartz-Reisman Innovation Center. It'll be a 2-tower complex for the school's artificial intelligence scientists, biomedical experts, entrepreneurs, and startups. It'll be built in the northeast corner of College and Queen's Park Circle, replacing 2 existing buildings on campus. Construction is set to begin in the fall. We'll be right back.
The weather update is brought to you by Train Extreme Conditions Testing. It's hard to stop a train, really hard. Train, the most reliable heating and cooling brand.
The Leafs hosting the Florida Panthers tonight in a high-scoring game. First period, Leafs already up 3-1. Zach Hyman feeds it backhand to John Tavares. That's actually his second goal of the night in the first period. With 43 goals, he now passes Ed Olczyk for most goals in his first season as a Leaf, and he's not done yet. Let's go to second period. Roberto Luongo stops Morgan Riley. Tavares is there for the rebound and his 10th career hat trick. Final period, Marner with a shot on net. Tavares alone at the doorstop buries the opportunity. His first career 4-goal game as Toronto wins 7-5. The Jays closing out spring training in Montreal tonight. First of 2 games against the Brewers. 5th inning, Brewers up 3-2. Kevin Pillar looking to make a Superman-like catch, but he can't hold on. That would go on to haunt the Jays as Travis Shaw homers to right. Brewers beat the Jays tonight 10-5. They play again tomorrow. Colin's back with their extended forecast. Don't get me wrong, I like the sunshine. I just like to see the temperatures go up a little bit more.
Yeah, we need a little bit of warmth to go with this, right? Is that asking too much?
No.
Yeah, no, it's not asking too much, and we're going to start to see that actually as we get a few more days into this week. Just a reminder, our average high this time of year, about 6.1 degrees. Average low around -3. We're going to be chillier than that overnight tonight, however. We are going to find that temperature falling off. And just a quick look look at those records. So it's possible to get to nearly 21 degrees at this time of year. We just didn't do that today. And that record nearly minus 16. We didn't do that either, and I'm quite fine with that. There's this ridge of high pressure really dominating across the Great Lakes as a whole. It's going to stay in place for a couple of days. We get a little bit, not quite a trough, but with a change in the direction of the winds as it starts to slide off. We'll see a bit of cloud cover there, kind of brief though, because we're still into sunshine not only Tuesday, but into Wednesday as well. And then it says we're heading through Thursday. At least right now, the timing looks like the beginning of Thursday might be okay with some clouds increasing. And then it's more like Thursday afternoon. This next system is going to go through as that ridge moves away and breaks down. And then we get into some showers pushing through the day. So a couple of dry days ahead where you don't need the umbrella around until we get there. It's going to feel like minus 10 overnight tonight for southwestern Ontario. A look at the numbers, but that's what the wind chill will be. And then tomorrow, highs around 6 degrees for most with sunshine. And tonight, clear skies as well for the GTA, but feeling like about minus 12. So in those morning hours, you really need those extra layers, or maybe you need the scarf and mitts then, and then you kind of peel them off. Don't necessarily use them as you get into the afternoon hours. And into the afternoon tomorrow, we should go up to about 5 degrees, 4 for Markham, 6 for those of you watching from St. Catharines. But after Tuesday, we climb a little bit further. So that's when it starts looking good. It's not asking too much, right? 8 degrees for us on Wednesday. Thursday, it's going to be a little breezy as that system comes through, but the temperature getting close to double digits. Friday, we'll see a little bit of that precipitation, perhaps early in the morning. Then it moves out, and the next system coming in for Saturday. Not a bad week ahead, Mike.
And the temperature's heading in the right direction.
And that's the right direction for me, too. You got it.
Thanks, Colette.
You're welcome.
Some very excited young Raptors fans there, getting to meet their heroes today. Kids between the ages of 6 and 14 celebrating the 2nd anniversary of the MLSE Launchpad with the Toronto Raptors. The Moss Park Gym offers free sports programs to kids in the neighborhood.
It is very inspiring getting to see people that you look up to and your role models and asking them questions that you might not ever be able to.
It's weird, you know. It's the reason they think we're like Marvel character heroes or something because we can play basketball.
Are you excited to meet these guys?
Yeah.
Why?
Because they look nice.
So kids got to rock climb with Danny Green, snap a pic with OG Anubi, play floor hockey with Norm Powell, even cook with Serge Ibaka. Now, since opening its doors in 2017, Launchpad has introduced nearly 5,000 kids facing barriers to sports. What a great day for them. Well, that's our newscast for tonight. Thanks for watching. I'll see you back here tomorrow night at 11. Good night.